Ladies and gentlemen, welcome, good morning. Welcome to Bournemouth University. Who is not from Bournemouth University? Welcome, you are our special guest. Who is from Bournemouth University? These are your hosts, so if you need anything, these are the guys that will after you, right? My name is Dimitris Bouchalis. I'm the head of the Department for Tourism and Hospitality, and I'm also professor of tourism and technology, and we've been doing that for a long time. This is my hero, Dr. Nigel Williams. He is my colleague, and together we're doing a lot of stuff on tourism and technology, and particularly artificial intelligence. This is a new area that we are moving and we're checking and we're looking into a lot of things. I'm going to go slow now because I can see East has just arrived. So I'm going to go slow and I'm going to give East enough time to come in and give us a smile. So this is the event that we are running with IFIT. And just in time, if East, who is the current president of IFIT, had just come in. We have saved that seat for you. It's all nicely done. And we've been working with IFIT for a long time. I'm a founding member. I was president for a series of years. And actually, Bournemouth University has been very much involved with IFIT, and I'm glad that East is now the first woman president and probably the youngest one ever, and she's doing a fantastic job. And we've got the Enter conference coming up in January in Cyprus. So, Nigel.
Actually, you're leading off on the top.
Well, I'll do, but let's do a little introduction, kind of,
Okay.
to the day.
Well, I'm not as famous as Professor Bouchalis here, but
Yet.
no, I'm afraid of fame. So yeah, I'm Dr. Nigel Williams. I work with Bouchalis in some areas of social media, tourism, e-tourism events. Background, I'm at the business school side, not necessarily formal school of tourism, Department of Leadership Strategy and Organizations. I'm joined by a couple of my PhD students. There's Gassan here, Thomas, I think is somewhere around. Mark is here. Did Mark here?
Yeah.
Mark's here, right. So we're joined by some of our PhD students. We look forward to great discussions, knowledge and networking about AI and tourism.
East, just on time, would you like to say welcome on behalf of IFIT?
Sure.
Not putting here on the spot, right?
So welcome to this IFIT talk, and IFIT has organized IFIT talks since I believe 2016, and we organize about 5 IFIT talk events every year, and I think AI and robotics in tourism is one of our key research priorities also for the organization, so we're very excited to have this IFIT talk here, and thank you for organizing this to us. And welcome. Thanks.
Thank you. The format of the day is quite simple. We're going to start with some academic presentations, looking to where we are, where we think that these things are going, and then we'll have a break, and then we'll have several professionals here that they're coming from the area of their visiting, who are working on artificial intelligence and tourism, or they're working in the digital world, and we'll kind of see what is the latest in the industry and what we can do together. And then we've got a workshop afterwards where we'll kind of mix you around and get you to talk about how can we work together. The purpose of today is not really presentations, not an academic conference per se. The purpose of today is really bring your thinking cap on and engaging in conversation with different people to see how we can take this area together. In academia, we're always looking for resources and brains to take knowledge forward. So we're looking for people to work with us, we're looking for money, and we're looking for brains, we're looking to bring all of those things together. I'd like to acknowledge my colleague Vasilis Kapos from the Department of Computing and Informatics, because we're trying to work together in a multidisciplinary kind of way to bring different people together. Some of you are coming from information background, information management background, information systems background. Some of us are coming from tourism, and it's all about bringing everybody together, right? So the first presentation, I don't normally do presentations in my events, but the first presentation we'll do it together with Nigel to kind of set the scene of where we think this thing is going. And I'm going to start with how artificial intelligence is supporting smart tourism. Smart is something I've been doing for the last 5 years, and it's really about bringing everything together and engaging the world on where the tourism is going to take us in the future. So Steve Jobs says those who are crazy enough to move they think that they can change the world are the ones who do. And this is what we're doing, and constantly when I'm going around, a lot of people are saying, do you think you're going to change the world? And I think, yes, I think we can change the world and we can make the world a better place. And we think that smart tourism is going to enable us to do that. And it's going to do it by bringing interoperability and interconnectivity of different integrated technologies and systems, and will enable us to produce innovative services, products and procedures towards maximizing the value for all stakeholders. A lot of the tourism activity that's happening now, it's not balanced. And we think that by bringing systems, by bringing interoperability, by bringing down the silos, we'll be in a position to actually improve tourism. So what we see is that the world is changing, and there's re-engineering that enables the shaping of products, actions, processes and services in real time by engaging different stakeholders in the co-production and co-delivery of tourism activity. So smartness is coming as the glue where all of those interoperable, interconnected systems are coming together to bring us a better future. And artificial intelligence, it's absolutely the catalyst for that, because what it does, it will enable that interoperability and interconnectivity. Because I'm an old guy. We stopped talking about interconnectivity 20-25 years ago. I remember doing a lot of European projects with partners in Italy, in Austria, and different places, where at that time, if you want two systems to work together, you had two choices. You had choice number one, to use standardization, so everybody will use the same standards, so Vasilis will kind of relate to that, which will never happen, because by the time we're doing that in early 2000, everybody had different systems already into place, and the investment that was required from Marriott Hotels and British Airways and Heathrow Airport and all those players together to change what they are doing was phenomenal. Then we start looking into ontologies, where the ontologies will bring together different translation systems that the systems will speak to each other. And that was incredibly difficult as well. So what we're doing now with artificial intelligence is actually bringing the systems together to enable that interconnectivity, interoperability, and that will be a catalyst for smartness. This is a project that we've done recently, and a publication we've done recently about smart tourism destinations. And what we're saying here is that it's not about technology only. It's about technology, it's about people in terms of human capital, social capital, knowledge capital, and it's also the leadership. Without leadership, these things would not take us anywhere. And then you bring to the value co-creation ecosystem, where economic actors, social actors, and technological actors are coming together to create the smart innovations that then bring all those things together. And a lot of artificial intelligence will come as a major catalyst there to support the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything that will take us forward with those things. So smartness is not about automation and digitalization. It's not about all of the things. It's not about evolution. It's not about the things that we're doing to do them better. It's much more about interoperable and interconnected systems that are mutually beneficial and they create real-time solutions for players. Using a whole range of sensors to bring input to the system, and the sensors are in all kinds of devices. Increasingly wearables are going to create a lot of information. Social media, you kind of pick up a lot of information that's happening in the social media domains. And then this from Brian Solis is kind of trying to data mine social media as and where it's happening, to listen, to learn, and to adapt in real time and co-create value for you. You is the brand on the one side, but also it's the consumer on another side. And engaging all of those things in real time. So artificial intelligence will be critical in kind of picking up signals and inputs from wherever those things are happening, and enable us in real time to listen, to learn, to adapt in real time, and change our programs, change our products, change our services to maximize the value that's created right in the middle. And it's really about the listen, engage, learn, and create this a new iteration of this. And of course the Chinese, being on a different planet, they just have a totally different Chinese social media that they're doing more or less what the Western social media are doing, but in a more controlled way. And I just came back from Guilin, where you see some of these things in action. You can see on the cameras. Everywhere I go in China, I smile because they constantly take cameras of, to take pictures of me, right? And they're constantly analyzing these things. This nice lady has got one camera there, one camera there, and another device there. Again, totally collecting data, real time, big data, being collected, going on the cloud and being analyzed in real time. And then they take a little bit farther with control systems, and then this is where the whole thing is going, where we recognize objects on the street. So the blue is cars, the red is bicycles or motorbikes, the yellow are people are moving. And increasingly you just identify them, and you can identify them from things that are identifiable, or face recognition, or patterns. And this is driving a lot of the things that's happening currently for autonomous vehicles and how cars are going to drive around, because the car needs to recognize what's in front of it, when to stop and when not to stop, and all of those things. Father, have seen, I already know. Some of you will know that yesterday, the day before, I was attacked on the internet. Someone created a Gmail account with my name and went to several of my colleagues asking them to go and buy an iTunes creator card. Someone pretended it was me, asking them, go out, buy £100 iTunes credit and send it to that address. And one of my colleagues actually got hit by that. So a lot of those things are bringing us a whole range of new opportunities, but also they bring us major threats. So I talked about smartness and how technology is changing those things. It's really, and artificial intelligence in particular, because it really changes those things, interoperability and interconnectivity and the Internet of Things and the Internet of Everything. And the rest is kind of feeding into that. So artificial intelligence are going to change the way we're doing interoperability and interconnectivity, and it's a catalyst to smartness, and it's a catalyst on how we're doing these things. And this is something that we're working currently on input, things that are coming in to information that we are collecting is coming in, data storage and data treatment. We are here, we're going to use a lot of machine-to-machine learning and artificial intelligence to understand what is the big data that we're storing and what can we do with those. And then you look into information about what's happening, why it's happening, what is likely to happen, and what can we do about it in terms of solutions. And then a lot of creation of value is going to come out of here, and a feedback loop that's going to happen. Now, what has always happened in industry is that people were doing that. They were listening, they're learning, they're improving, and they're moving forward. But it used to take a year, 2 years, 3 years, mid-term planning, half-term planning, and things like that. We are getting to a situation where this is going to take minutes. So when Sarah was running the hotels, are you still running the hotels? No. Okay. When Sarah was running the hotel, someone would call and say, hi, we've got a problem, and that problem may be a particular operation problem, we need to fix this. And then Sarah will make a phone call to a plumber or whoever to go in and fix something. Now the toilet is going to tell the plumber, I need fixing, before anybody knows about it. And the difference of this thing here is that it's going to go so fast and on the background. So we'll concentrate on the value creation. And then I'll finish with this, which is really about big data being created from tourism suppliers and in the marketplace, and contextual information goes up on the cloud, being processed here through artificial intelligence and value aggregators, and come as a storm of value down to the consumers of data and all those decision makers. And this is coming as feedback to the suppliers. And all this thing is happening within seconds to improve what we do and how we're getting things done. Yeah? Nigel will look more on the artificial intelligence and how it works.
So Dimitrios sort of set the context as where these things are happening. I've taken a slightly different view, coming at a somewhat more operational level, looking at the existing research on AI and tourism, and in management in general. And this diagram is basically a summary of existing applications we've used it before in management research, in business research. Looking at machine learning on one side, supervised learning, which means the examples that the machine might learn from. And our definition of AI here is a machine that acts, which would be a software and hardware system, without being explicitly programmed to do so. So that's our working definition for AI. Of course, there are multiple definitions. So supervised provides examples, it learns from that. Unsupervised, it learns patterns without being provided labeled examples. And then knowledge systems, which are older technology, been around for some time. Expert systems, which were quite popular in the 80s and 90s, but they haven't gone anywhere. They still exist in some form or fashion. So in business and management research, we've got this pattern of applications. We sort of distill those into particular roles that they can perform in tourism, where we look at AI as an analyst, where we use it in machine learning to support, augment, or replace analytical skills, and classify and predict, identify patterns and clusters, groups of entities that are similar to each other. And reinforcement learning, we use that for advertising mostly now, allocating actions based on some reward or punishment. AI can be used as an operator to replace skills, either knowledge skills or physical activity skills. And then there's the transformation view, which is somewhat more existential, talking about your super intelligences and how AI will take over the world. AI ethics, a much broader view as to what AI can do within and around society. We haven't done too much in this particular area. So in our research that Dimitrios and I do, we recognize the constraints that happen within any service environment. Most services are run by small organizations who don't have large data sets. They tend to be fairly constrained in terms of financial resources, so they don't have a huge amount of money. So they will tend to use existing algorithms rather than create their own. You would tend to focus on information applications rather than physical movement applications, because building a database of these actions can be quite tricky for a small company. And since services are quite, each one's quite different, they're quite heterogeneous, building an aggregated data set of, let's say, how to cook an egg can be quite complicated. So you will have, it's better for us at this stage to focus on information interactions and knowledge rather than physical activity. That time will come a bit later on. So just also to sort of set the context, the difference between AI and machine learning, if you're not sure. If you see somebody doing PowerPoint, it's probably AI. If it's written in Python, it's machine learning. So since this is in PowerPoint, you know what we're talking about. So We looked at AI interactions on the customer journey, because we focus on information interactions. We call the touch points that exist. Some are owned by brands or partners, some are owned by customers, some are social or external, like your TripAdvisors, your Airbnbs, and so on. And they would have various touch points would interact versus around the consumer journey. And where we see AI as having the greatest impact in the short term is changing the volume and the nature of interactions among participants, information interaction, in the short term. Medium to long term, of course, is quite different. So using the algorithms we talked about before, identifying patterns, anomalies, choosing actions, integrating data sources, as Demetrius points out, the fragmentation issue, many different formats, many different types of data sources. Bringing them together is one of the things that machine learning can do. And we've done a couple of projects so far, mostly with Caterbot. Nick's in the back there. This was at Bournemouth Festival, the DFS bot, where we were looking at AI with brand customer connections. And part of that, the findings from that research, we identified resistances to customer resistances to AI in service settings. Some of them are based on the limitations of the technology itself, and some of them are based on overestimation by customers of what the technology can and can't do. Slightly later on, again with Nick, we looked at we did some work this year, 2018, and we'll do some more work in 2019 with the NW 200 road race in Northern Ireland. And there we looked at many-to-many customer interaction. So we had the AI curate and collate conversations among customers and present predictions. And we're subsequently developing it a bit further on to do some work in volunteer engagement using process automation. And where we see our research in the short term going next, and we'll want to have that informed by some of the conversations that will happen today. We've got some PhD students. Mark's looking at AI and service design. Thomas, who is not here yet, is looking at price personalization, possibly using reinforcement learning. Voice interfaces in tourism and hospitality. Again, these are fairly quick wins because the technology exists. It's a matter of seeing how we interact and use the technology rather than trying to craft something for good. And slightly more existential, AI impact on tourism professionals. As we start using machine learning, AI-enabled tools to perform actions, how would that shape the future skills required of tourism professionals? And that's my short summary. I think that's all. That's it for me on this stage. Any quick questions before we set up for the next speaker? Any immediate questions?
Cruise ships are very intense tourist environments.
Yeah.
But people have got a lot of data and you probably want to manage them quite intensively.
Yes.
So they look like to me like, you know, an area where you're going to get a lot of AI, very intensely used, and people agree to it. What's going on in research in that area?
I've had some conversations with a couple of IT professionals who in the tourism sector. I think they're the cruise ship sector, and they've kind of lost as everyone else because of course there's the whole idea of permissions to access that data and the context in which it's being used. So far they've kind of limited it to being a sort of a digital concierge to provide access to information and so on. But more complex applications are not yet being discussed. That's as far as I know.
We had here the Andy, who is the president of Norwegian Cruises, who is a graduate from here. So we had him here 3 weeks ago, and we're discussing about collaboration with this area. The big cruise companies are spending incredible amount of money on technological developments that nothing works so far. And they've spent millions and billions of dollars in doing things. And they're trying to do it because they are trying to reduce the labor cost on board. Labor on cruises is very expensive, very dangerous, and the conditions that are not ideal. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to reduce a lot of those things. One of the things that they're trying to do is, as soon as someone boards a cruise ship, they have got about 10 to 12 questions that they're always asking. What time is my dinner? Where can I go? When is the next port and stuff like that. So they're trying a virtual concierge kind of situation. The other thing that they're really spending a lot of time on is sales and marketing. Because something, we're living live. Okay, I'm going to say it anyway. So, any boat that is leaving a port needs to have 100% capacity occupancy. So they need to be totally, absolutely, every single cabin filled up. And the reason for that is because 37% of their income is coming from on-board sales. So it's absolutely critical that they get all the cabins sold to the last minute. So there's a whole range of different activities that they're doing to actually understand customers and do yield management and revenue management to make sure that they're filling every place. Cruising is an area that's expanding, and we are looking into it. And with Andy, we have discussed collaboration at that kind of strategic level to look into what they're doing. But in a way, cruises is like hotels. It's a cruise is like a moving hotel. So if you look into my latest paper on smart hospitality, you've got that, but also you've got the destination of docking everywhere. So a cruise ship is going to stop in about 10-15 different ports on their way. So it's optimizing the on-board thing, optimizing the destination, and optimize the collaboration between. It's a huge area. I'd love to work on it. Students, take notice for dissertations, please.
There's no obvious spin out, because these guys are always going to be more advanced than the city-based tourists. It's only airports.
It's a different type of thing. They've got different constraints. You know, if you run out of a particular supply, you know, you run out of a particular food, you cannot go to the local supermarket kind of thing. And if you don't have all the stuff on board to carry it for 4 months, you don't have any stuff. No. It's a different challenge, but they've got other opportunities that if you're in the city, you've got other things, that you've got leakages and stuff like that they don't, because they're controlling where they're going and what their customers are doing. It's a very interesting area. We're looking into it. Yeah? Let's go to the next presentation.
Sorry, quick question. It's more of a group one. It's just to understand why people are here, like from what area and what they're kind of. Just I guess from show hand.
I think there are three types of people here. I think there are students who are working with us, they are studying with us. That's one category. I think the IT professionals, either academics or from industry. And I think we've got tourism and hospitality professionals as well. So it's that kind of mixture of people. And this is what I said in the beginning, the purpose of the day is not to do presentations really, but it's really engage in conversation to see how we can take things forward. Yeah? We've got Ease next. So Ease is doing fantastic things on robotics and artificial intelligence, and I think she'll surprise us. And then we've got Vasilis, who needs to leave by 10:30.
I see that. I see that. That's so complex.
It's too big.
Don't worry.
All right.
Quiet!
Thanks. Good morning. So I was asked to actually talk about AI and robotics, but since it is an IFIT talk, at every IFIT talk I was tasked to actually talk about IFIT. So bear with me. I'm going to have maybe about 5 minutes, maybe a little more, about to talk about IFID, to introduce you to IFID. And then afterwards, I'm going to talk about, not specifically about the research that I'm doing at the moment. I can touch on that a little bit also, but more so about key priorities, key research priorities that I think are important for us to do research on in terms of AI and robotics in tourism and in hospitality. And I do have 2 very bright, young, enthusiastic PhD students here working on robotics and AI, so they actually have specific projects that they are doing, and in addition to those, I also have a few things to share a little bit. So, before going to the AI and robotics, just briefly, IFID is the International Federation for IT in Travel and Tourism. It's founded, I think, 26 years ago, and I'm the current president. Alice was president, I think, before Lorenzo and me. So we are basically trying to be the community for e-tourism knowledge. So we are looking at building a network of not only tourism professionals, like academics, but also from the IT, from the travel technology industry. So we're organizing Enter conference every year, but in addition to that, we also do organize events and also provide resources for young academics and young professionals, for example, with ICT4D scholarship and so on and so forth. So what we're trying to do is be at the leading edge of research and development in IT for tourism and hospitality, but also support research excellence and development in technology, but also stay relevant to the industry and hopefully contribute to society. That's me. So I'm based in University of Surrey, and some of you, I think, are members of IFID. So if you have not yet registered or entered or becoming a member, one of the things that we offer for our members are access to all publications from Enter conferences, and also we are partnering with Springer for we have JIT, so the Journal of Information Technology and Tourism, is our official journal of IFID. So if you remember, you have also free access to that journal. And then we do offer discounts for events, for our own events, and also for our partners' events. So, in terms of numbers of IFID members, United Kingdom is number 4. Now Switzerland is still number 1, and I'm actually I hope that I'm trying to increase the number of membership from the UK in this year or next. Okay, so in terms of activities, we, as I said before, we organize IFID Talk about 5 events per year. Before this, we organized one in Australia and in Nairobi, and then before this, we actually had one in Dalian in China, also about AI and robotics. And I believe this would be our last IFID Talk for this year, but we already have about 3 IFID Talks lined up for next year. And our Enter conference will be organized in January 30th, from January 30th to February 1st in Nicosia in Cyprus. And the day before, we will have a PhD workshop organized by University of Cyprus in Nicosia. So this year, actually, this year's Enter was organized in Jönköping in Sweden, and the theme was about digital tourism, engagement, content, and networks. So every year, what we're trying to do is we work together with the host organizations to come up with a theme that is relevant to local tourism industries there, and also to research community there. And so this was one of the things that the tourism industry in Sweden was really passionate about. So they really look into digital content in tourism. So at the conference we had lots of interesting topics, including virtual reality and AI and robotics is also part of this, big data and so on. And for next year, which is going to be in January, the theme will be about e-tourism towards a sustainable digital society. So together, so IFIT and the local host feel that with the advances of technology in travel and tourism, one of the key challenges for us is to make sure that we develop and apply technology to support sustainability. Not only sustainable tourism, but also contribute to sustainable development and sustainable society. So that's a little bit about Enter. Any question about IFIT? Okay. So I'm going to move on to AI and robotics. And one thing that, if you look at history of research and development in AI and robotics, in the past, in the early days, AI and robotics are always really tied together. So the research and development of robotics and AI, it's always about how to create intelligent machines, right? So robotics and AI are kind of, you know, linked together in the past. But then, what happened next is, because of the different backgrounds of researchers typically, and also development, the development of research in these two fields kind of part ways to some extent. So if you look at in the history of research in AI, the approach has always been top-down reasoning and kind of ignoring the embodiment, the physical aspect of machines. On the other hand, researchers in robotics are using bottom-up approach, so looking more into the embodiment of machines, looking more into sensory motor functions of robots instead of intelligence. But then, of course, there has been a movement for an integrated AI and robotics research, and now I think we've seen the fruit of that movement, that we have lots of intelligent machines that are having really high commercial interest, and also useful for lots of different sectors, including travel and tourism. So what I'm going to do now is looking into, well, a little bit about, earlier there has been definition and so on. So if we follow Russell and Norvig definition of AI, we know that there are 4 different streams or schools how researchers have defined AI as machines or systems that think humanly, or think rationally, or behave humanly, or behave rationally. And they prefer the last definition, so looking into machines that actually act or behave rationally. And by rationally means that it knows how to connect, to link between goal, action, and outcome. Looking into the first definition of systems that act humanly, as you know, probably we are all familiar with the Turing test. So these are the 6 subfields in AI that essentially, if you want a machine to act like a human, then you need to equip the machines with capabilities that human has. So that is natural language processing for communication, knowledge representation, basically how to organize what they know, what they learn from the environment, automated reasoning, basically how knowing how to look for information that they stored earlier to answer questions, or to kind of respond to queries and so on. And then machine learning, essentially knowing how to learn from the environment and extrapolate patterns. If they don't have information exactly for the questions that asked or towards them, they know how to create new information and so on. So these 4 are essential for disembodied AI. So anything that has these capabilities of communicating with humans and learn automatically and so on. But then if we want to move into robotics, then we need two more. One is computer vision, so essentially how to recognize object in front of them, for example. And robotics is basically to move about. So I'm going to try to use those to refer to AI from now on. Now, this is something I borrowed, of course, from Huang and Rust. They have an idea of what kinds of intelligence that are necessary in service. That, for me, includes also tourism and hospitality. And with the perspective that AI systems will be able to master this kind of intelligence, and the consequence of that would be replacement of humans in service jobs. And so they then try to predict when AI systems, that includes embodied and disembodied AI, will take over jobs from humans based on the tasks and the intelligence that they can replace. So at the bottom level, they start with mechanical tasks, so things that are repetitive, manual work, manual labor in service. So that will be the first skills that AI would master, and hence job replacement will happen first at the mechanical level. So mechanical AI, things like, earlier there's a question about cruise ship, right? So in Royal Caribbean, for example, they have this bionic bar with maker shaker, with robotic arms making drinks for passengers. So these are examples of mechanical AI. And then the next one is analytical ones. So things with, for example, with machine learning. Dealing with big data, right? So things that humans cannot really do because of our limited computational power. So that will be next. So this is when AI know how to learn and adapt based on big data. So according to them, what happens would be, first, mechanical AI will replace repetitive tasks, and then it's going to move on to the analytical AI. And then at the highest, of course, is empathetic AI, which is, I think, still in development at this moment at the hypothetical level. But of course, there's a development of moving into that direction. We design AI system that recognize emotion and then autonomously deal with things that are more complex in terms of human interaction. So that's from AI. Again, going back to what I'm saying earlier about AI and how the development and the research has focused on intelligence, on reasoning, top-down. And then if we look at robotics, and in robotics, of course, the backgrounds of lots of researchers coming from mechanical and electrical engineering, so they're focusing more on the sensory motors and embodiment of machines. Okay, so we know that there are different kinds of AI, robots, ranging from industrial ones with stationary, what they call manipulator, the robotic arm, and sometimes they can also movable a little bit. And then there are some mobile robots, the classic ones, kind of like the ones with wheels that can move because they have sensor, whether it's contact sensors or non-contact sensors. And then we do have legged ones, including humanoid, and we do have advanced robots, bio-inspired ones, kind of the creepy one that Boston Dynamics created. And then nanorobots are also in development, mostly for healthcare. So, you know, things like something that you can swallow to actually do something with your body inside. Anyway, and so most of these advanced robots are also in kind of the hypothetical stage at the moment, but we do have examples of how industrial robots and mobile robots have been applied in travel and tourism. So again, this is, for example, from Maker Shaker, what I mentioned before. And then the delivery robots, again, this is an example of a classic robot using sensors and stuff. Okay. Yeah, and then researchers in robotics, you know, the first ones, the slide before, is from probably 2014, 2013-ish, and then afterwards, this is from earlier this year, that they come up with kind of, not necessarily ontology, but classification of intelligent robots. And so the researchers came up with these 3 different elements to differentiate between intelligent robots and that of general robots. And these are sensory elements, mobility elements, and the thinking elements. So this is where we can see the integration between AI and robots. And based on that, so they classify, you know, sensor robots, interactive robots, and autonomous robots. So the one, this last one is the kind of robot that would have the ability to make correct judgment and thinking, so they can actually function without any human intervention. So we don't have that currently in travel and tourism, but we do have sensor and interactive robots. Basically, these are the ones that rely on human-robot interaction for their operations. Okay, some examples. Mechanical one. The Cafe X, they promised that the robot would actually make about 120 cups per minute of coffee. So you can imagine the cost savings. But, you know, do we need actually 120 cups per minute if you're a coffee shop? I don't know, but that's what they promised. And then in September, I stayed in Japan for a week at Henna hotels, at various Henna hotel properties. So I had a lot of fun. And this is an example of a robot receptionist. She doesn't do a lot, but yeah, she's there to greet us and tell us what to do when we check in. So this is, I have a video of this, but it's not going to work because it's not using my computer. But anyway, this is a robot concierge at the same hotel. And of course you can ask, so it's working on voice command, so you can ask questions. Maybe if you're interested, I can send the video later. But one of my friends was there and asked, where is the nearest, what did you, I think it was a convenience store. And so then the robot would answer and give us a map where to go to the nearest convenience store. So that's one of the big interesting issue here is that the tourism encounter changed, right? So it's like normally we go to a hotel, we talk to a person who actually knows about the area well. They probably try different kinds of restaurants, and then they have, you know, certain kind of taste and can actually recommend things based on their experience. But now, if we are using this, then of course they can look at different kinds of reviews on TripAdvisor, for example, in maybe less than a second, to make recommendation. But again, it's not.
あなたの名前は何なの？
僕はユニボです。仲良くしてくださいね。
わかった。英語喋れるの？
He's asking if you speak English.
少しずつですが、喋れるようになってきましたよ。
Oh, that's great. So, can you tell me where is the nearest convenience stores?
地図を表示いたします。歩いて行く位置。
It's walking. 1 minute walk. And then, yeah, there's another video, but I'll skip that one. Okay, so what are the issues around AI and robotics? To me, there are a lot of things that we need to pay attention to. when we apply AI and robotics in tourism. Because, for example, if you look at analytical AI, and they use big data, and for example, one of the things that we talk about is marketing and sales and so on, and personalized offer, personalized prices and so on. So they need to actually collect lots of personal information from visitors, from tourists, from customers, and so there is an issue of privacy in the sense of management and control of personal data, but also in terms of surveillance psychology. Right? So this is something that I'm actually working at the moment. We recently got a grant from BSRC to look into privacy of personal data management for travelers, and then one of the segments that we are looking as automation dominated travel. So people who are using lots of AI and robotics, so chatbots, robots, and all these things. And then, well, we'll learn a lot about bias in AI and machine learning and recommender systems, for example. So that's also making sure that we create a system that's fair, inclusive, and provide access to everyone. Is also another key issue. Security. I guess it's very straightforward. But then one of the things that for me is important is also the idea of this potential of abuse, misuse, disuse, and abuse of intelligent agents. Because as a human being, we are taught, raised to be respectful to others, right? To other human beings. But then if we interact a lot with machines, with robots, soulless machines, some people do not really respect, that intelligent agents, and then we see a lot of abuse of machines. If you don't know how to deal with it, then you're like kicking the robots and so on, and that also happened in children. So this is something that's I think to me also is very important to look at. And then with transparency, making sure that we're not only working on black box, because that's always what's happening. Not always, but most of the time, especially if we are talking about deep learning, about convolutional neural network, we don't know exactly what's going on there, right? So there's this hidden layers and so on. So making sure that transparency is also and policy. Okay, I think this is my last slide. So this is from Russell, Dewey, and Tegmark. I admire all the three of them for different reasons. But they came up with this paper based on a conference that they organized in terms of beneficial AI. And so they suggested that there are key priorities in research for AI and development of robust and beneficial AI. Two of them are in social sciences, so it's probably for us if we are in tourism and hospitality. And then two of them are basically technical aspects of AI development. One, we need to make sure that we know how to measure, how to assess and then measure the economic and social impacts of AI. So for example, things like labor market forecast. What's going to happen when AI actually replaces jobs in hospitality and tourism. And secondly, legal ethical aspects around AI. So things like, what happens with service failure in AI? What if a robot actually causes harm? How do we deal with that, right? And then in terms of technical aspects of it, always, I think, verification and validation. So do we make this the right system, meaning that the system that meet the requirements from clients, customers, visitors? And then two, do we actually make the system right? So do we make the right system, or do we do we create the system right? And then last, but also I think very important, is making sure that there is a human factor included in the system, so that we have control over recommendations or decisions that AI systems come up with. And I think that's all from me. So thank you. IFIT Secretariat is with us at Surrey, and I do have the IFIT Communication Officer is actually right there, Aaron. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you, Is. Questions for Is? Artificial intelligence and sentimental computers would be fun. Scary stuff, right?
Yeah.
But
Could be scary.
There's a question over.
Yeah, you have a question. Sorry.
No, I just want to comment. I thought you were a little bit biased towards the anthropomorphic side of robots, but potentially drones are much more economically significant.
Okay.
It's just making something that walks around like a human, engaging to humans, but it's not really very economically effective. Whereas a drone, you're going to get a lot of money into it to be moving things around. It's much more efficient.
Okay, so when I'm talking about robots, of course, it's not only legged ones. So I'm also, so for example, we are working now on autonomous vehicles, and that includes, we're not really doing a lot about drones yet, but I think for different purposes, of course, drones would be more economical. But if you're looking into efficiency in the kitchen or efficiency in hotels, right, or bars or things like what I mentioned earlier, then mechanical stationary ones would be, you know, a better option. But if you think about other, I don't know, delivery and mobility of people, including, then we have to think about things that are moving physically across different geographical spots. There's an interesting, I think for the UK, of course, there's this movement towards the future of mobility, and of course one of the things that for the Industrial Strategy Challenge is how to create, you know, the next generation autonomous vehicles and flying helicopters. People talk about that, but I don't know. I'm not there yet. Yeah.
It's interesting. What we see is that people are always thinking about evolution. So they think, how can I replace a receptionist with a robot receptionist? How can I replace a driven car by an autonomous car? And a lot of times it's really about going through the re-engineering, the total revolution of things that we have never seen before. You know, and we've never seen a helicopter delivering a pizza, so therefore we cannot think about it. But that's where we are going. Yeah.
And I think I forgot to mention, so the hotel that I was saying, so they do have this room service with drones, so you can actually call. So there is a smart plates. I don't know if you're familiar with smart plates. So you know you can take a picture of things and then you order something. So from third party, so you can have a taxi, a tour guide, or order pizza, and then the drone would come and get the pizza for you, and then the room delivery robot will take it to your room.
You have a question?
Yeah, you mentioned Japan there. The last time I was in Tokyo, the one thing that was very evident, and it tells the people that actually lived in Japan for a few years, is that everybody seemed to have a job from the age of 17. Now, how are they taking the aspect of if you've got a receptionist, suddenly that person doesn't have a job and they have to move up the chain, so someone along the line doesn't have a job. Are they fine with that? Or? So,
well, the history of this is, you know, the first hotel was in an area called Sasebo. It's in Kyushu Island, where there is a theme park, and they had difficulty finding people to actually work at the theme park. So it's really about labor shortage. And for the first one, so they didn't really expect that it's going to be that successful. And now, I think 2018, they do have up to 100 actual properties planned throughout Japan, and in neighboring countries, and also internationally. So they are opening one in New York, they're opening one in Turkey, for example. But that is because customers are actually really into it. And while the first one was in a theme park, so that people really associate that with something, how can I say, novel. And looking at the name of the hotel, hen in Japanese can mean two things, right? Two things. One is a change, and another one is weird. But of course, people associate that with weird. So it's a weird hotel because it has robots in it. But then, if you look at the development afterwards, the properties that they open in Tokyo, for example, are all, not all, most of them are targeting business people. So those who just need a place to sleep for 1 or 2 nights, and they want efficiency. So it's not really for families with kids. Probably the one at theme parks, yes, but most of their properties are now catering towards business travelers.
And business travelers are also repeaters as well.
Yeah.
So if they know the system, they go bim bim bim, goodbye.
Yeah.
There's one more, Nikos?
Can I ask something again? Do you think that high cost of labor in Japan is actually bootstrapping the innovation towards automation?
Yeah, definitely. And then, so also, I went, so from Japan, strangely, I went the next week, the following week, I went to Budapest for a WTO event. And I came across somebody from KBI Hotel, the 360 Smart Hotel. So it's not robotics, but they do customers and employees both actually control the journey, the experience with their own smartphones. And so, interestingly, they apply that because of the same issue. And what happens is, people, young people especially, they don't want to work in Budapest because it's much more beneficial for them to actually cross the border to work in Vienna or to come here to London to work in the hospitality industry. And so they actually face the same problems, labor shortage. And that's, I think, one of the key areas for us to actually do research on.
Okay. Thank you very much, Sis.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Luis Mendes Filho from Brazil. Luis is visiting us from the University of Federal de Rio Grande do Norte. And he's working with us currently on smart tourism.
Good morning, everybody.
Morning.
Hello, hello.
Hello.
First of all, I would like to thank the meeters for inviting me to be here. It is such a great pleasure to participate in this IFT talk. I'm a member of IFT, so it's also a great pleasure to be again in IFT talk. In 2016, I helped organize a IFT talk in Brazil, and it was a great experience as well. And I can say that since 2010, I have participated in attending Enter conference organized by IFT 3-4 times, and I learn a lot. I hope sometime we can attend one of these Enter conference next year in Cyprus, beautiful Cyprus. And yeah, that's it. In my talk today is on smart tourism development. So it will be a short talk. Let me introduce myself. I am an assistant professor in the Department of Tourism and at UFRN, Federal University of Rio Grande do Norte in Brazil, northeast of Brazil. It's like 3,000 kilometers north from Rio and São Paulo. It's a beautiful city called Natal. Natal is Christmas in Portuguese. We are the closest point from Brazil to Europe and Africa. So we were the U.S. armed base in the Second World War because it's a strategic point. I'm also the director of Tourism Management Study Research Lab at UFRN, researching the Brazilian National Council for Scientific and Technological Development, CNPq. This is a Brazilian government agency. As I said, I'm a member of IFT. And I'm here as a visitor scholar to learn from Demetrius, which is one of the top guys, together with Chumoko, Uri Gretzel on smart tourism. Brazil and the other South American countries, we are running behind on smart tourism, and hopefully I can learn a lot from Demetrius here. And my talk today is to bring some concepts of smart tourism and some frameworks, and at the end brings like a small link with artificial intelligence. But as she brought a lot of NI topics and everything. But anyway, as I said, Demetrius will teach me a lot about smart tourism and everything. So first, let me show this framework from 2012, because before talking about smart tourism, it's better show a smart city framework. And in the beginning, it was like comprised of 3 layers: sensing, network, and application. As you can see, sensing is more like IT, and also transport, buildings and everything. And up you have all this network, like a Wi-Fi, 3G network, to connect all these things. And then finally the application layer, where you see the sectors and the industry that could use all the information provided by this all technology in a smart city. So this is what was in like 6 years ago. And as I said, when you talk about smart tourism, first it's better to have a look on smart cities concepts and framework, because it's first start everything on this area. Okay. And then going to smart tourism, I brought a definition here from Gretzel, Sigala, Chen, and Co. From this paper that said that tourism support by integrated effort at a destination to collect, aggregate, harness data derived from physical infrastructure, social connection, government organization, sources, and human bodies mining, in combination with the use of advanced technology to transform that data into on-site experience and business value propositions with a clear focus on efficiency, sustainability, and experience enrichment. So, because in the first stage of smart city, people only talk about IT, and you see that when Demetrius talk, it's not only about IT, but what IT can provide to a smart tourism destination. You see later. Oops. I had a look at Google Scholar this week, and Google it the last most cited papers on smart tourism, and as you can see, the Smart Tourism Foundation developed a paper from Gretzel, Sigala, Chiang, and Co. Have more than 278 citations. And then Conceptual Foundation for Understanding Smart Tourism Ecosystem, again, yes. Gretzel and Chumoko papers. But then, through Demetrius papers, Smart tourist destination is tourist experience through personalization of service and conceptualizing smart tourist destination dimensions. So both with more than 100 citations. So as you see, as I said, Dimitrios, Chumuku, and Europe Gretzel are the three top guys that you can see all the most cited paper on smart tourism topic. So from those of you that who are planning to do some research on smart tourism, I'm definitely recommend to have a look at these papers. Definitely you see very good concepts. Then I brought some thoughts from the Dimitrios that he already mentioned here. It's very hard for me to talk about smart tourism when you have these two top guys on smart tourism here. But anyway, as I said, IT is not the means to an end. It's to an end. So it's not the solution. IT is the glue that connect everything. And but at the end, it's not about technology. It's about agility and value co-creation. With the IT, we can provide more value for like consumer experience, consumer value experience personalized, and then this could bring the smart tourist destination better value for customers, tourists, and the city itself, the destination. That's what we are talking about at the moment when you talk about smart tourism. That's the point, you know. So I have brought the framework based on smart city, and last year Uri Gretzel has proposed a framework based on 5 conceptual layers of smart tourism. So basically, the physical layer is on transportations, buildings, artifacts, all these initial layers, and then up we have the technology layer, which are all these new technology, NFC, RFID, virtual reality, smartphone, and everything. And then all this technology, they have all the data that's going up to the cloud. Okay, and on the cloud, you have the data stored, processed, analyzed, and using like artificial intelligence, data mining. All this data can be bring information to the business layer. When you talk about smart tourism, you have to talk about DMOs. Okay, so the DMOs can have all this information analyzed, and like they have also living labs in some European countries. Is very common. And then finally, this will bring to the consumer value experience personalization. That's what Dimitri has talked today, and that is the point that we expect that the smart tourism destination can bring for the tourists. So they have the agility and personalization for that kind of person that would like to have a tourism experience in a smart tourism destination. This was last year, and as I said, when you talk about frameworks on smart tourism, you always are developing new concepts, new frameworks, and mostly sometimes IT people, they are always they are bringing new stuff, new technology, new concepts before smart tourism people. So this year we have this smart city ecosystem framework that which is comprised of 7 layers. You see that it's quite similar with the Gretzel last year, like the technology and physical layer. You see here, the smart city technology infrastructure, and then the network, connectivity, security, second layer, and then the third layer all this data collected by this staff will be on the cloud, similar to the Gretzel. Okay, but then we have two other layers here that is, as I said, proposed by these people in 2018. The policies, the rules that will be controlling all this information, data, and everything, and also the governance with the demos and all the stakeholders. They will have to control and manage all this information, and then, of course, with all this technology and personalized consumer experience, we can innovate the cities and perhaps destinations, because this is for a general, smart city, but usually there's smart tourist people always look at this smart city frameworks from IT people, and then finally you have the 7th layer, which is called value layer. It's not saying here, but this is the value layer, where we have the people like citizens, communities, of course tourists. They will all have all this information and everything analyzed by artificial intelligence, data mine, to provide more quality of life, government efficiency, health and wellness, economic development, stability, mobility. This is the one of the latest smart city ecosystem framework. Okay. And it's important to mention that nowadays with Internet of Things, and artificial intelligence, data mine, they are all like together, and they have this new concept called Internet of Everything, because Internet of Things basically is the physical technology, like watch, smartphone, and everything. But the Internet of Everything is not only the technology, but people, process, data, and things. It's like the intelligent connection of all things, process, people, data, and things. And so, as I said here, the Internet of Things is the equivalent of a railroad line, including tracks and connections, whereas the Internet of Everything is all of that, the trains, the ticket machines, staff, customers, weather condition. So this is where the intelligence comes in. And so this new age of smart tourism, of course, technology is not the end, but they can provide, together with artificial intelligence, a new age. How can the smart tourist destination can use this new technology to analyze data, creating value for the customers, and this will be, as I said, in real time, providing consumer value, experience, personalizations. I think is the main thing for the smart tourism destinations. And big data and artificial intelligence are really the resource that can help to really understand the need of locals and tourists. That's the point, That is clever, because in the past they provide like information for everybody. It's like mass tourism. But now with the smart tourist destination, it's the destination can provide personalization, information, and where to go, attractions, and everything. That's the point. So I'm running late, but IT or artificial intelligence technology promise to make tourism even more efficient with new service. Like I said, like customer service bot is getting more and more used by people, and personalized recommendation device, and this will boost the potential for agents to present consumers with personalized niche travel experience that they didn't know they were looking for. You know, this is what the data can provide for them. So this is an extra tool to understand tourist profiles, providing a special and tailor-made experience, and even promote a move away from, as I said, mass tourism to the same location by guiding customers towards like known attraction and destination perfect for them. That's the main thing. And towards the end of the presentation, what's about the future? Tourism and IT can provide better outcomes. So new technology, providing, as I'm kind of repeating here, but consumer value personalized and contextualized experience. That's the things. Dimitri used to say, listen, engage, learn, and then co-create in real time. That's smart destination. By listening better, travel organization can be smarter when making strategic decisions. And smart cities are built on technology, but focus on outcomes. So outcomes is the main thing of smart tourism destination. So here are some of the references that I use here in the presentation. And that's it. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luis. Questions for Luis? It's really about how do you bring all of those things together, and how can we manage the different systems to work together in a clever way and engage in a clever way. And I think where you've got the different layers, we need to start understanding the different layers and how they support interoperability, interconnectivity, right? Let's start by introducing ourselves so we've got a better...
So my name's Sam Eric. I work as a consultant for Bournemouth Tourism and other events in the local area, as a social media and digital visit. One area you mentioned, the last bit, was to do with how AI will help travel organisations and help bring visitors to different niche experiences that they never knew that they wanted to reach. How is that managed? Would that be managed, hypothetically, how would that be managed to bring those experiences to them when you've got examples of, for instance, algorithms generating suggested playlists for things like Spotify, which are actually siloing people into things that they're already interested in, rather than widening their interest, so to speak? Would that be managed by the destination management organisation, or would that be something that's just generated through machine learning, and then they find people who have similar interests but then other interests that generate that?
I think it's a really good question, but I'm not expert in artificial intelligence. Steve or Dimitris can help answer this question, because, as I said, my tourism is...
It's very specific.
Yes, yes.
Just as how to generate something that's not so... Obviously, everything's through that kind of thing's through machine learning, so how do you create something that they're not interested in to get to them?
I think the key is not to offer things that they're not interested in, but to offer things that they would be interested in, but they didn't know. It's not part of the array of, offers that they're typical to tourists. So if, things that I would like if had I known about it, right? So,
yes.
So I think that's the key in terms of personalized experience. It's not about offering people things that they will not like, but we know from past experiences, from preferences, that they would like something that is not, normally not being offered. So I think that's the key.
There's also some related work on using recommendation systems to engineer serendipity, which sounds weird, sounds like oxymoron, but they define serendipity in recommendation systems and things that people like you might have liked or would like, or your friends have experienced before you haven't. So within your network, there's somebody who may have had a similar or liked experience and try to guide.
Can I just go a little bit backwards here? Because what's happening is I'm an old guy and I've been in tourism for more than 30 years. And technology is something I'm using to support tourism. Now, when you're thinking about these things from a technology point of view, it's a logical conversation that you've got, and effectively you've got that supply, and you've got a guy or a person here with a demand, and you're basically filtering the supply through various filters into things that you will actually choose at the end. I dare something that not a lot of people are saying, and I've been saying that for about a year. In tourism industry, the consumer behavior of decision making is totally irrational. And those of us who are coming from technology cannot understand how it works. Those of you who were with us last night ended up having spare ribs. They didn't go there for spare ribs. So we had a meeting place, come along to this restaurant, have a look. But everybody, 6 people on the table had spare ribs.
And they liked it.
And we liked it.
Okay.
Because I liked it. And a total illogical recommendation system happened in very analog ways. Even Chulmo had the spare ribs before he arrived, because I decided for him that he was going to have spare ribs. If you are going through the logic with the technology point of view and logic, it's not going to work. You're not going to understand. Because there's so much emotion and there's so much things influence left, right and center that you end up to a totally illogical conversation. So as a hotel person, when I see a customer, I quite often ignore what they've got in their, what they are telling you, because what they are telling you is probably irrelevant to what they need. You add to that culture, you know, he's Brazilian, he's Korean, she's Indonesian, I'm Greek by origin, she's Trinidad. Trying to bring all those cultures to coexist in one place and trying to look into different tastes, it's crazy. So sometimes people are coming to restaurants I manage or hotels I manage, and I look at them and I said, what do you need? It's a double whiskey, regardless of what you think that you are. Sarah is laughing because she's seen that so many times. People are coming to you and they're complaining about things, but the reason of their complaint is the weather. Their room is wrong because the weather is raining. If the weather was beautiful, the room was fine. So it's really about, there's a layer of irrationality that artificial intelligence is going to find really, really difficult to manage. Because it's not about rules, it's all about feelings. And that's why, you know, back to your question, what's going to happen to the Japanese guys, it's can we create that kind of empathy to understand what his needs. She arrived this morning after 2.5 hours journey. What she needs is a coffee and a welcome. Yeah? But she doesn't articulate that because she's stressed and she likes to do a presentation. So her mind is presentation. My mind is, hey, she got her coffee, hey. So it's all about this kind of irrationality in that kind of business, which will be, and I think that's an opportunity as well. If you understand this and you go backwards and say, what is his requirements? What's his background? What does he want to do? What do we learn from his past experience? And then and then who is going to do it? I don't know. We are talking about destination. Who is destination management organizations here? DMOs. Yeah, okay. Are we going to have DMOs in the future? Would we need Maison de la France in France? Do we need the Ministry of Tourism of Romania? What's the value they add? Or would that be Google or Amazon or whoever, Uber, understanding that every morning you're ordering that kind of breakfast and they'll deliver to you based on your location?
So what you do need is collaboration. If you're not
exactly.
Putting it together, you need teamwork that says what's special about our place, what's our story, and it's those things that are about the soft factors. Exactly right, as you say. Yeah. It's when you walk into my hotel, it's have a cup of coffee, sit down.
Yeah.
You know, whatever and do you know what's really cool in this place? It's this biscuit or this exhibition's just opened. It's that whole immersing you in our place.
Exactly. So smartness is going to bring all of those things together, and artificial intelligence is going to bring the customer demand, which is, sometimes it's not even articulated. What the customer demand is not articulated. But the customer demand is going to come through the system and say, okay, this person is Muslim, doesn't eat pork, face of life. This person is Chinese, they like hot water, they don't like cold water. And before you're going to the situation where you're serving this, have you ever served cold water to a Chinese? Because they like hot water. They drink hot water. So you give them an American iced bucket of water, and the Chinese say, what the hell am I going to do with that? They just go away. A similar way, have you ever served hot water to an American when they sit on a restaurant? Say, what? They forgot to put the tea in there. So it's that kind of thing, and then the technology.